cerca al trabajador inmigrante.
La radio, nuestra voz, Radio Jornalera, y ya tenemos a nuestros siguientes invitados del día de hoy. Pues es una agrupación, Víctor, que ha dejado muchísima huella aquí en el movimiento, ¿verdad? En la lucha. Han descrito muchas de las luchas que hemos pasado como comunidad jornalera y como comunidad migrante.
Pues ahora tenemos aquí con nosotros en vivo, nada más y nada menos, a los jornaleros del norte.
Estamos muy contentos
y los felicitamos a toda la comunidad jornalera de todo Estados Unidos por la radio jornalera. Creo que es un proyecto muy importante que va a traer mucha voz para la gente que no tiene voz.
Es un arma la voz también es un arma, la voz también es un arma, la voz también es un arma. Si no dices lo que piensas, si no dices lo que sientes, nadie te va a escuchar, nadie te va a escuchar, nadie te va a escuchar, nadie te va a escuchar. Queremos trabajo, la migra al carajo. Queremos trabajo, la migra al carajo.
Tonight, my name is Pastor Myra Macedo Nolan, and I lead the Clergy Community Coalition. We're a network of faith leaders in the greater Pasadena area. We've been around for 20 years. We really care about flourishing in our community for all people, and we partner with city leaders and nonprofits to make sure that we're working together to that end. And so my role tonight is simply as the moderator to make sure that this conversation keeps moving. And so I'm going to be sharing some information, doing some introductions, framing the evening. We are planning that we will be wrapped up by 8:15 or so bear with us if we go a little bit longer. Maybe we'll go shorter because we'll get all of our answers in the first hour. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great for you? It's a little different from your Monday night marathons, isn't it? Okay. I want to first invite one of my colleagues and board member, Pastor John DeCure. If you would come up and lead us in prayer, I hope y'all are okay with that. We are in a church after all.
If you would join me and bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for community. We thank you most of all for unity and your wisdom. We thank you that in every conversation you dwell in those conversations. And we believe tonight will be no different. And so, God, thank you for everyone who's here to participate. And we thank you, Lord, for producing the heart in all of us to continue to the road of unity. We pray all these things in your son's name, and all God's people said, amen.
Thank you, Pastor John. Okay, so I told you about the organization that I work with, but this is not about the CCC tonight. This is about our community, and this was pulled together by a group of organizations. Endelon, the NAACP, POP, Altadena Rising, Grupo Autodefensa, and My Tribe Rise collaborated to put this night together. And I also want to make sure that everybody knows Florence Anang, who is going to be keeping our time and also conferring with me on the question segment for tonight. So this is a forum on community police, ICE collaboration. What is it? What is it not? Is it happening? We have a lot of questions. We actually entitled this Local Policing, Legal Observers, ICE, and Building Trust, because we know that the trust is the most important thing in our community for public safety. So everybody came here for a reason. We came here for truth-telling and clarity. We didn't come here for talking points. People did not come here for vague responses. We came for clarity. So I just want to name clearly how we're going to be holding space for truth-telling and clarity tonight. And I want to remind us, I said truth-telling and clarity because false unity helps nobody. So we cannot continue to live on this notion that we are one Pasadena when we know that there's clear division in our community. Particularly, there's trust that needs to be built between city leadership and community members. And so we want to make sure that we're holding space for that tonight. And if city leaders, I want to ask you that if you don't know an answer to any of the questions that are posed to you tonight, that you just please tell us that plainly, that you don't know. It's better to hear that from you tonight. Because people are trying to make decisions about safety, about families, and about actual lives, and everybody deserves that clarity. We also want to name what's in the room. There's fear, there's anger, there's been family separation, a lot of pain, there's real anguish in our community. And so we want to say to you, our city leaders, you're going to feel that probably in the room tonight, and it may be a little uncomfortable at times, and so we trust that you will hang in there with us in that tension. And it's not because anyone's trying to create division, but it's because people are living with the consequences of that uncertainty and fear every day. This is a sacred space. It's a community space. It's a space that was selected by community leaders as a community space, so we are inviting you into a community space. So it's a little different from us being in council chambers, where it is, even though it's a public space, we wanted to just make that distinction that this space was created specifically to create safety for community members. And we just want to make sure that what's most important to us tonight is that you hear the community members, and that you not try to manage or message the community, but you really, really hear. And we also want to say something else clearly. In moments of tension, it's been the community that's held peace, right? It's been community organizations, it's been neighbors, it's been people showing up, sometimes with trucks and music, with presence to reduce fear and restore a sense of safety and bring joy to incredible volatile and traumatic situations. And that is done by the community. And I just wanted to make sure to mention that, because I think it's important that we all, everyone, every single person in this room honors that. And again, I just want you to hear me clearly that we're not here to antagonize you. We're here because we all want the same thing. We don't want violence in our community. We want safety, we want dignity, and we want trust and clarity. But we also have to be honest that there is a real deficit of trust, and trust is not rebuilt through general statements. It's rebuilt through clear, direct answers and consistency over a long period of time, and this is why we're here tonight. So before we move on, I want to just share a couple of ground rules for the evening. Let's see. First, I want to make sure that we're all engaging one another with respect. Community members to leaders, leaders to community members. Second, the responses are going to be time limited so that we can hear from multiple voices. So questions will be asked, and the initial time will be 2 minutes. And if it's within our time frame, we'll allow for a 1-minute follow-up. Third, we're asking, again, I'm just going to repeat this, for direct answers. If a response does not address a question, I'll redirect us back to the question. And then 4, we know emotions are strong, so we ask everyone to help keep the space focused so that we can get the clarity that we all came for. And finally, if something can't be answered tonight, again, we ask that that also be named clearly. So we're going to move to our question segment, and we have some initial questions that were based on what we are hearing from the community already. So those are predetermined, and we have people who are going to ask them. And then after that, we are going to move to a time of card questions and some live, depending on how much time we have. But we do want to make space for that. So if we all help keep the time, then we'll be able to get to actual live questions as well. Okay? How does that sound? All right. Okay, so let's see. If we do have some clarification that's needed, we might ask follow-up questions. So let's have the questions. Do we have an order? Or shall I just call them up? You want to do that? Call them up?
Question number 1, asked by Liz and Sarah, directed to Chief Harris.
Hi everyone, my name is Liz and I'm a co-founder of Grupo de Defensa in Pasadena. We are a group that's been out here assisting our community with all these ICE raids that have been going on. My first question is to the Chief of Police. What directives, if any, are given to police officers when ICE, on what to do when ICE is present in Pasadena? And how are you ensuring that all your police officers that are out on patrol are receiving these directives, these protocols or these instructions, any type of training? How are you ensuring that everyone in your department gets these directives?
Well, the first part is to ensure that as a general policy, we're making sure that we are adhering to SB 54 and ensuring that the policies that we've implemented have been vetted, not just with the police department, but as a complete entity in the city. One of the things that we're telling our folks is that, and the same thing we're telling community, is this is not something that we want. We didn't ask for the feds to come here. We don't want them to come here and conduct themselves in this manner. We see what it does to community, and so on that, we are linked in thought. And so we've passed that on to our folks in the field to make sure that they understand that with that, we are speaking with one voice.
How are you passing this on to folks on the field?
So as we're passing this on to in the one voice pieces, we have daily briefings where we are dealing with questions from community, making sure that we are staying current with what the questions from the community members that we engage with are answered in the briefing. So there's clarity amongst the folks that are going to be out in the field interacting with the public as to what their duty is and what they are required to do. We've had numerous discussions with regard to how that policy will be employed. We have division commanders that are following up with the management, the mid-management folks with the supervisors, and then the supervisors with the individual people that are actually out in the field. So we're trying to make sure that we convey that message on a regular basis. And we're certainly inviting our folks, as you'll see back here with folks in the uniform, to be inclusive and engaged with the community and be willing to have meetings and have these discussions.
This is a follow-up question to one of my questions. Were any of these directives or communication to the folks that are policing, did they happen before, after interactions that we, and personally myself, have had with ICE agents and PPD?
It's happened both before and after. I think it's an ongoing evolution. We're learning as we're going along as an organization how to handle this, what is a critically emerging issue. And so, you know, what was here yesterday may not be the same next week, depending on how we approach it and the changes in policy. So what we're trying to do is maintain fluidity so that we can bring the best service to this community and certainly maintain the peace and maintain order.
I just want to ask a clarification about that answer. Is that, you're talking about, you know, being there in spirit, I can't remember the word you used, but is there an actual any written policy about any written directives that have been given to Pasadena police officers?
We have put out directives.
In regards to, yeah, how to handle it.
Yes, we've put out directives from my office to the entire department with regard to what's expected of them in the field when encountering situations involving ICE and any other type of situation that has us connected to the community in these circumstances.
Are those directives that are publicly available?
They are department memos that are not generally publicly available, but I have no problem discussing them.
Yeah, because it would just be really helpful to be able to see in writing what those directives are.
From a policy perspective, that will be something that's, the policies and the procedures will be something that's public. We have some of our folks here, including Assistant City Manager Alex Soto here attending. We are currently putting together an overarching response that mimics some of the things that some of the other cities you might have seen in the news are trying to do to make sure we're putting that information out to the community as to what and how we will respond. And we're going to make sure that we communicate that with everybody in this community.
Okay, so policies and procedures are publicly available, but there isn't currently anything that's in the policies and procedures because it's still just the directive that you referred to. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think you're pretty close. From a policy perspective, we adhere to SB 54, which is a public law. We are putting together an overarching policy that will be out here shortly. We're working on the details with that. But from a department policy perspective, those policies are made public.
And so within those policies and procedures that you're directing to your officers, whose priority, whose safety and whose priority within these directives? Is it these scouters, kidnappers, murderers, ICE federal agents, or is it the community members? Whose directive are they to protect?
Our responsibility is to protect everybody that's within the city of Pasadena. We're here to maintain order and keep the peace. We want to respond to what the community's needs are, and so the community is our first priority generally. But that doesn't mean that there aren't circumstances where, just like any other law enforcement agency, there may be an interaction where we are involved with ICE. It's a very delicate situation, but one that we are trying to make sure that we mitigate in the interest of community safety and wellness.
Can I ask one more follow-up question? Given that I know that you are obligated to respond to calls for assistance from other law enforcement agencies, is there a line that you wouldn't cross that if you respond to a call from federal officials and you witness things that are clearly illegal that they are doing, is there a point at which you would prioritize protecting the community over your obligation to your other law enforcement agencies?
When we respond, our primary duty is to preserve order and protect the peace. We are generally duty-bound, whether it doesn't make a difference whether it's federal authorities or any other law enforcement agency. If we witness objectionably or objective violations of use of force, we are duty-bound to take action. It's not unique to the federal organizations. If the West Covina Police Department or any other police department is conducting themselves in a manner that is objectively unreasonable, we are duty-bound to take action.
Thank you. Thank you.
For clarity, Chief, you said that shortly the policy was going to be out. Can you give us a general time frame of when we can expect that?
I don't have an answer to that.
You don't have an answer?
No.
Thank you.
What I wanted to suggest is that there are going to be a lot of follow-up questions, and we're hoping that we can put them in the parking lot, right? So please don't forget some questions or some of the answers that any of the three gentlemen say tonight. Kind of jot them down, and if it hits your brain, then use it in the parking lot or use it as a follow-up question. Like if there's something that the chief said right now and you still need a little bit of clarity, we can put that in a follow-up question at the end. Because everything that they're saying, yes, we're live streaming and we're doing everything, is on record. So everything that's coming out of their mouth is something that we can call them on, right? We absolutely have to call them on everything they say. So, like I said, whatever your questions are, we can always follow up afterwards. We're going up to the arrest of Jose Madera. Mess up your whole name.
Yeah. Hello, beautiful community. Again, my name is Jose Madera, born and raised here in Dina, and I'm the director of the. Thank you. Thank you. Much love and solidarity to everybody. I'm the director of the Pasadena Community Job Center, and as we know, January 7th is the day this year when we were again organizing and coming together to honor the 19 lives that we lost, our neighbors, our community members in the Eden Fire. But also we were getting together to commemorate the work that we did as a community to support our neighbors in our community. But that day is when ICE came into our community, into our streets. And me, along with others, became legal observers. And we were seeing the movements of this ICE agent. And the movements of this ICE agent led us to in front of the Pasadena Police Department. And that's where I was stopped, questioned, and then arrested. And that created, and this is the reason why we're here too. And that created, again, outrage in our community. Because again, when they mess with one of us, they mess with all of us. And again, like I mentioned, this is why we're here today, to get answers, to be community, and again, to get answers.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela Neven. I'm one of the co-founders of Grupo Autodefensa. And my question is for Chief Harris. I'm not sure if you're able to answer this one, but so Jose Madera was arrested while legally observing ICE. The letter, all the charges were dropped, but the letter he received says no criminal charges will be filed against him at this time. However, may still be subject to future review by this office until the applicable statute of limitation period is exhausted. Should this office decide to review your case further and file criminal charges against you, you will be notified by mail at this address. We have been told that this language is just procedural. However, that language leaves Jose and our community living in uncertainty, that charges could be brought up at any moment. We need you to dismiss the charges with prejudice and ensure that this is removed from his record. We need a new letter that clearly reflects that. Are you willing to do that?
No. That is not something that I, as the police department or the police chief, have the capability of doing. We had probable cause to make the arrest that was determined, and then it was sent to the city.
Then is the city attorney here? Can we have, is there?
I'd like to finish my answer if I can.
Sorry.
It went over to the city prosecutor's office, which is where that letter came from, and it is a general letter that goes out. So it is that entity that makes those decisions. The reason I said no as a short answer is because I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence. I don't have the capability of initiating that letter, so I didn't want to beat around the bush and make it look like we were giving a bogus answer. So I think that is a good question, but directed probably at the wrong entity to evaluate that circumstance.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the same question to the city manager and to the mayor. I'd love to hear a response if you're willing to commit to that.
The answer on behalf of the city manager is the same. It is not a city manager function. It's a function of the city prosecutor's office.
So what steps can we take in order to make this a reality? City manager or city attorney.
Hi, I'm Michelle Bonarise, city attorney, city prosecutor. And as you mentioned, that is the letter that is always sent. I have a chief prosecutor who oversees the prosecution division. And I can't contemplate any reason that would come into effect for there to be some revision, because the charge that was filed isn't something that could come up. But it is the letter that we send out, and we are not in the business of making special circumstances for different individuals. In that we've basically chosen not to file the case, and we're not going to file the case.
Thank you. I understand that, but in this circumstance where Jose is a pivotal leader in our community who has done so much for the community, and if this not just damages him, but also the community as well. And I do think the community thinks that, and the trust, and the charges should be dropped with prejudice. Oh, sorry, should be dropped, yes, but a revised letter that removes it from his record, that you cannot open criminal charges.
So just for clarification, because we just want to make sure that we have complete clarity, a question, the response to that was still no, there is not going to be a change in the letter, right? I just want to make sure that I got that right. Or is there some steps that the community can take to try to have that letter changed? Can you?
No, I'm not aware of any steps that could be taken by the community to change the letter. We did take steps that to meet with Mr. Madera that we would not necessarily always do. So it is something that we have tried to make clear, and I'm trying to make clear now that there isn't anything that any of us could imagine that would result in that being filed. But the answer is no, there is no plan to change that letter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I, I think we have to keep in mind a fundamental governance matter. And, because people have asked me the same thing. You're mayor, can you make that happen? And the answer is, I can't. In our city, the city manager is responsible for all city staff, with the exception of the city attorney and the city clerk. And we have a very, very bright line with the city attorney, city prosecutor. By law, we are prevented from weighing in on prosecutorial matters. When I reviewed the letter, as an attorney, I recognized that the letter simply states, we're not moving forward with a filing, but it is also reflective of state law. It's not the city attorney who is saying this matter, who is saying the statute of limitations for this matter is 2 years, Michelle? 1, thank you. Oh, that's right, 1 year. It's state law that keeps it open. And that's simply what the letter, from my perspective, reflects.
Okay. Breathe. Question number 3.
And can I just finish up with that? So even if the city attorney sent something to that effect, under California state law, it's simply not true. It would be incorrect. It would be legally incorrect and inconsistent with state law.
Just want to...
City prosecutor, I should say.
Thank you for that clarity. And I want us to take a deep breath, because the truth is that we're going to get some answers that we don't like. But it's more important that we walk out of here prepared and knowing what is possible and what is not possible, so that we can be safe in our community, meaning so that we all know how to protect one another. And I want to, again, just ask for grace in question asking and responses, and making sure that we're allowing people to finish their sentences and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Pastor, and I would add to that, you may hear things you don't like, and you may hear answers that we don't want to give. I'm certain that there are people who, within City Hall, who would like to say, yeah, this can be dismissed with prejudice, but that's inconsistent with state law, and it would be inaccurate, and I don't want to say in violation, but it would be misleading to the community and to Mr. Madera. That's the issue.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sure that there are organizations that have attorneys in the room that are probably going to be checking into that to make sure that there is no recourse for that.
Question number 3 is going to be asked by Peter, directed to Chief Harris.
Hi, my name is Peter. I live in Northwest Pasadena, and like a lot of my neighbors here, I'm a legal observer in Pasadena. I have a question for Chief Harris, but I have to put some context to it. Since early June, I've seen firsthand the violence that ICE agents have brought to our community. I've seen them throw my neighbors to the ground after racially profiling them. I've had my neighbor call me screaming as masked men kidnapped people down the street from my house. I've been held at gunpoint by an ICE agent with an AR-15 after a raid in my neighborhood. I watched in horror as armed agents beat a man on the side of the road as he begged me for help. I've stood with my neighbors as they grieved for family members who were suddenly taken from them. ICE agents are only ever going to bring violence to our community. They do this because that's what they're trained to do. Many others in this room have also witnessed this violence as legal observers. We're out there standing shoulder to shoulder as neighbors because that's what real community means. On January 7th, we saw another one of their agents running amok in our neighborhood again. I watched as he tried to crash his vehicle into legal observers' cars, drove to their private homes, called out their names on a loudspeaker, and watched as he ran through red lights and crosswalks at high speed and ultimately drove straight to City Hall. Rather than holding this man accountable for endangering our neighbors, your department instead surrounded legal observers with patrol cars and helicopters, and you arrested one of our own community's most respected leaders. I know that as the chief of police, you're informed by ICE when they will be operating in Pasadena. And I'm asking you to consider what their history of violence really means to your community. Will you inform your community when ICE is coming to Pasadena?
I can't divulge when other law enforcement agencies are conducting operations of any sort to the community preemptively. What we've done when this first started is we tried to make sure that we could put it in some type of context that provided a safer environment. As an example, when we first started experiencing these folks in the community, they were coming wearing unmarked uniforms and masks, different types of cars that didn't always illuminate the fact that they were law enforcement. The first thing that we did as a department, I contacted Homeland Security directly, ICE directly, and I asked them to, at minimum, make sure that we could get some kind of heads up that people are coming into town so that we could dispel the legal kidnapping notion and be able to understand a little bit more of what we were dealing with regard to authorized law enforcement presence. In addition to that request, we asked that the folks that are conducting this activity do so in marked uniforms so that we could eliminate that part of the fear that's under our control. And third, that once they were here and gone, that they notified the police department that they had been here so that we could track it after the fact. All three of those things have been happening on a more regular basis, but not 100% of the time. So I can't require them to notify me. We've asked, and in some cases they have. We've had some instances where they've called us and told us they're having operations in the city, but they don't tell us where, don't tell us exactly where, and they're not obligated to. The other part is making sure that they're in uniforms that clearly denote them as law enforcement officers. And the last, like I said, was to make sure that they call us. We've been getting a lot more of the latter part of that evolution, which is calling us after the fact and letting us know that it was them. So that one, we know, and two, we can convey to any family requests or for information that their loved one may be at a local detention center or wherever they're taking them to, so that it eases at least the angst of knowing that they weren't taken by people other than people proclaiming to be law enforcement. So we're working on trying to get the cooperation of those folks so that we can minimize the fear and the angst, and we're doing it to the best of our ability. But the answer to your question, the short answer to the question is I can't divulge law enforcement operations. It's illegal to do so. It's a federal violation of law, and therefore I cannot.
Can I ask a follow-up question? The next time ICE lets you know that they're going to be here, how will you direct your officers to prepare? Will you prepare helicopters to surround legal observers again? Or will you take a higher road following other jurisdictions like Seattle and direct your officers to go out and document their violence against our neighbors who are being disappeared? Will you commit to, and this goes back to the policy question, will you commit to meaningful, verifiable support of your community in the face of this violence? This is not law enforcement as it's meant to be. These are weapons of war on the streets of Pasadena and terror tactics, keeping our community in fear.
The answer to the question is we've implemented policy that we will dispatch a supervisor immediately to any signs that ICE is in the community, whether that's a phone call or however we get that information. We will respond there and verify that they are indeed ICE and not rogue faction outside of law enforcement. And then we will be there to witness. We all wear body-worn cameras. Be able to observe and then provide that information to any after action, either litigation or after action by ICE. We have provided a phone number on our website for people to contact when they feel that ICE has violated policy or the law. It goes directly to the folks who are responsible for those actions and those officers, their version of internal affairs. But our folks will make sure that we observe, ensure that there's not an objective violation of the law, and we will make reports on a regular basis to our Public Safety Committee and our City Council folks to ensure that people know what our role is.
Will any of the reports from officers or that body cam footage be available for the public to review?
I believe so.
How can we access that?
Typically through a Public Records Act request. I think there's different ways to try to get access to camera footage, whether it's related to ICE or any other police operation.
Thank you. I think the first three questions were directed to you, Chief Harris, but I think the sentiment, and I know it's a yes or no, or I can't answer that question, or anything, but I think what the community is really trying to convey is the response of the officers, right? It's the response. It's not so much as policy, but how you make someone feel, right? And how they've been feeling hasn't really come up to the standard of how we've usually felt if it's a Pasadena PD. And so something is going awry. And so the questions are to ask you, yes, are you doing this? Are you doing that? But the elephant in the room is that something is going right. Like the way the officer responding to situations is making the community legal observers as if they're the targets. And they can be arrested and they can be taken away. So I think there's no answers tonight, but moreover to think on that and to mull on that as we move forward, because it's how the PD is responding is how you have a room full like this tonight. Question. Brandon.
Hey y'all, Brandon Lamar, Pasadena NAACP. This question is directed towards Mayor Gordo, and I'm also going to actually include our city manager because it's your staff who writes up these things. First off, does Pasadena Police Department give license plates and flock camera information to ICE? And then follow-up question behind that, and you can answer it however you choose. As we've seen in our partnering city, South Pasadena, they have canceled their contract with the flock cameras. And so is this something that we can look forward to our city doing the same thing? And then at the end of the day, Mayor, you set the agenda. Can this actually be set on our agenda? Thank you.
We've asked the question directly of the police chief, the city manager, when I say we, members of the city council. And the answer has been a consistent no. The Pasadena Police Department does not share flock information with ICE. And for those of you who may not know, the flock camera are the traffic cameras that are used often successfully, as they have been, to catch people who've committed heinous crimes in our community, offenses against residents of Pasadena and visitors of Pasadena. And so, what was the second part of your question, Brendan?
As South Pasadena did, will you consider canceling the agreement with the flock cameras? And also, let me add, South Pasadena is a partnering city. We do some things together, maybe. So have there been any conversations within our departments in South Pasadena on either why they canceled the contract or whatever the case may be? And is our city considering doing the same thing?
I'm not aware of South Pasadena's actions, and I've certainly not had any conversations with South Pasadena officials, council members, and/or police department officials related to the flock cameras. And so I can't speak to that. Chief, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I can't speak to South Pasadena's actions.
Yeah, so let me clarify. I don't think we need you to speak to South Pasadena's actions because it was publicized in newspapers, and also people went and heard that the contract was canceled. So I don't think that's the case. I think the question here is, will you consider with our city council actually canceling our flock cameras? Is that a conversation that is happening? And I know the first part you said with the police department is not. But is that a conversation that you guys would consider?
I'm not aware of the basis or the rationale for them canceling. I can tell you that it's our direct policy to not share information related to flock, and it's not just flock, any information from any department with ICE. And that is a policy adopted by the city council. Whether or not it appears on a future agenda, we have a public safety committee that has looked at the question or has planned to look at the question. And so, that's something that the opinion of the public safety committee is something that's very important to all of us.
Great, thank you.
Because, I hear the question about flock, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate. It's very legitimate, particularly the sharing of information, and we have a clear policy there. Then we have to look at the question of, what's the utility of flock in terms of public safety, and I think that's where the balance needs to be struck, and that's what the question that needs to be analyzed is, in my view. But as long as I'm satisfied, if the chief told me today, yes, we're using flock, or the city manager or anyone else, we're sharing flock information with the federal government, I would say to you, for immigration purposes, I would say to you, yeah, no, that's not acceptable. But I'm assured and I'm confident in the answer, not just from the police department, but from every city department, that we are not sharing information from any department with the federal government for purposes of immigration, civil immigration.
And if I may add, this issue was taken up at Public Safety with Vice Mayor Rivas, chair, and the members of the committee. They began discussions, but they had to end short because somebody had to leave and they lost quorum. But it's going to come back for additional discussion. I think the community should also know that SB 54 and SB 34 both prohibit the sharing of that information with out-of-state agencies or with federal agencies. So, we need to be held accountable to that, and we will be held accountable to that, because it's not only local, it's the council's directive that we don't share any information with federal immigration, but it's also state law.
If I may add just a little bit onto the end of that, it really is a balance, or striking a balance through understanding what flock really is and what flock does. There are many safeguards built into the application of flock, and there are opportunities to use different types of technology to provide for community safety. As an example, there's an opportunity for us to use the video surveillance portion of products that are out there, and we've elected not to, because we don't want to have that part of it in our community. What we have allowed ourselves to get engaged in is simply the flock cameras that do the ALPR system, the automatic license plate reader, and that's all that it captures is license plates that are already visible to the public. And so that's the extent to which we are engaged with flock and is the ALPR. The rationale behind it is really that it is a crime-solving tool and a database that gives us a real advantage in fighting crime in our communities. More importantly is there are laws and safeguards by policy, certainly state law, and other laws that do not allow us to share that data, and we won't violate the law to do that. We have consistent data checks. We're checking our data on a regular basis. We'll now be reporting our data monthly to the Public Safety Committee, and we are certainly going to make sure that there are those safeguards that keep us doing things on the right side of the community safety mission. So it's just important to understand some of the balances and what Flock brings to the table and how we are committed to using it. There's numerous types of databases that we use, national databases, different things that we use on a regular basis, have used them for years, that we have to be certified to use, and we get regularly checked out on them to make sure that we're not violating the rules. And that all of our folks that are using these databases understand that they can't share this information. And so Flock is just the latest iteration of that. The initial databases that we use have been using some of the same protections over the course of years. And we're very, very adept at making sure we protect our data and protect the information and use it in a manner in which it's meant to be used and not outside of that. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Thank you for that. I don't have a follow-up, but I did want to say something that City Manager mentioned, which I think we've been asking, what can the community do? And I think the next part for us to do is that if any of the community members do not believe in flock cameras, you should show up to the next police oversight meeting and make sure that your voice is heard, not only at the police oversight, but also the public safety meeting, and make sure your voices is heard. So just as many people as here needs to be there if you don't believe in it. And I think that is the next step. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to Jose, and he's directing another question to Chief Harris.
Hello, everyone, again. So California is advancing a legislation, AB 1537, to prohibit local police officers from taking a second job with federal immigration agencies, like ICE. This is a yes or no question to Chief Harris. Are any Pasadena police officers, have any of them taken a second job with ICE?
Not that I'm aware of.
And so it's a no?
Yeah, it's a yes or no question.
Not that I'm aware of. I am the one who manages the outside employment request forms, and I haven't seen a request form come through with that. But I'm not aware of any of the city employees or those specifically related to the police department who are working with a federal organization or ICE.
So, no.
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, let me say something. In most public agencies, whether you're a civilian or a sworn officer, if you are going to seek secondary employment, you have to fill out a form, and you have to disclose it to the employer, and you have to fill out a form saying, I'm going to be working here, and notify the employer. And some public agencies go as far as to say we have approval rights.
We do that.
Okay. And I think what the chief, well, I know what the chief is saying is he's not being presented with such a form. And if someone is working an outside secondary job and not disclosing it by using this form, I believe that would be a violation of policy, correct, Chief?
Yes.
Thank you. Next question is being asked by Heavenly and Pablo.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all out tonight. When we're talking about how we are going to protect our neighbors, I want to be sure, first I'll say my name is Heavenly Hughes. I'm with My Tribe Rise, and we are out here today to stand in unity and solidarity with our neighbors who are right now why I'm so concerned about the fact that our day laborers are being arrested while they're helping us recover and rebuild Altadena in certain ways. And so when I was asked to come, I said, you know what, there's an issue here that needs to be addressed. And when I originally saw that flyer, it said ICE and police collaboration. And I'm like, what part of the game is that? We definitely want to make sure it's clear that that is not something that we want in Altadena and Pasadena. It's collaboration between the police and ICE. So we want to make that really clear. But what am I feeling in this room tonight, right? I'm like, exactly are we feeling? And I don't know if we're really addressing what we're feeling in the community right now, like what's happening in this room, why we're quiet, what we're holding inside, what we really want to express and let out. I'm really big on the fact that we must connect to correct. So I really wanted you all to know that we're here to talk about some corrections, some things that need to be corrected to build the community, to build the trust, to build the understanding. And with that being said, it's very important for us to address ICE in our community. I was originally going to talk about policing in a community and how policing is affecting our Black and brown community. Yet when I'm thinking about, I see all people that I work with all the time here, people that we've hired to do remediation, people who I know their hearts are heavy. And one of our fire survivors, who we were also able to hire here at My Tribe Rise, came to me just now in tears, and I said, she told me we're holding it all in. So I would like Nicole, please, to come up. This is Nicole Vasquez.
I feel like I need a chair. I'm not as tall as Heavenly. Hopefully y'all can see me. I feel it in the room, and I see it in the head shaking, right? And here come the tears, but these are tears of anger and frustration because we're up here talking about policies and procedures and ignoring the fact, I mean, we all feel it, right, and we know it, but we're not addressing the fact that we're living under a fascist dictatorship country right now. That's what we're in, and that's the reality. And when we're talking about solutions and changing things, that's what I believe we need to that's the discussion that needs to be had, right? When we look back 50 years from now, we're gonna think, what did I actually do? Did I stand up for this? Like this thing out here says ICE out of DENA, and we're asking questions and having discussions of like, what are the policies and procedures when they come, right? We don't want them here. We don't want them anywhere. Also, it's not about ICE out of DENA. It's just ICE out, because we don't want them to go out of DENA and go on to the next city, right? We don't want, like, Minnesotans fought hard, right? But then they just went somewhere else. So we're all here as community and as a collective, and thank you, Heavenly, like I have to name what we're all feeling in the room of addressing the reality that we're living under right now. And honestly, it's not about policies and procedures and protocols. Like you're talking about federal law and things, like this is a time when we're like, this is our moral imperative to stand up and to fight against, and like I think about the mayor of Chicago, like I watch his press conferences and how he stands up. This is a beautiful, multiracial, multi-generational group that we have here in this room, and this is what DENA, Altadena, and Pasadena is about, and this is what we are gonna hold you to. Thank you.
Can I just address that? You know, I was very proud of the fact that Pasadena was one of the first cities to denounce ICE activity anywhere. And, you know, we moved fairly quickly at the city council level, and we'll continue to do that. And so let me just say it as mayor, we don't want ICE in Pasadena. We don't just want them out of Pasadena. We want them to stop this terrible, horrific, and inhumane behavior. What I worry about most, besides them being active and families being separated, is us allowing ourselves to be baited. I think we have to be careful not to be baited into activity that gives them an excuse to escalate their activity like they've done in other places. I've been very proud of the fact of the Jornaleros and the band who has been out at the demonstrations ensuring that our committees, our community's actions are one, that we are on record, but two, that they're safe and respectful of everyone. And so I think we need to continue down that road. Yes, continue to denounce, but let's not be baited into activity that then causes them to show up in more force than we've seen already, like they have in other communities.
Hold on, before we do, so we can get the question. Okay. Let's get the question.
Can we do a follow-up to what Mayor Gordo just said? Because I think we need a follow-up. We need a follow-up, Mayor Gordo.
Come on, Heavenly.
Sorry, I really do apologize, and I really do want to highlight what you just said.
Sure.
But we need to stop being baited. And
No, I said I'm concerned.
Concerned.
That we.
So then.
Look, if I can just explain, there's no question. The minute I heard that ICE officers were leading observers to police departments, not just in Pasadena, but in other communities, the first thing that came to my mind is that's intentional, because we've refused to. We've said very clearly as a city, we're not going to participate in civil immigration enforcement. And so that, in my opinion, you may disagree, was an attempt to draw in our police officers in our police department by...
It wasn't an attempt. I don't want to interrupt you. It was not an attempt. It was successful. They did call in those police officers, and those police officers did protect and put a priority. Their priority was and has been, every time they show up, their priority are those federal agents, those scouters. And the police department, as what you're saying, is not being accountable or holding up to what you are speaking of right now.
Well,
that is a concern, and that is what's being said.
Respectfully, Liz, let's keep in mind, there have been other observations, there have been large demonstrations that have gone well. In fact, even on January 7th, which sickened me because it was the date that we're trying to recover and recall what happened to this community in the fire. And there were still people observing, even and filming. The reason we have camera footage from, I wish we had more of it, from January 7th and from the police department is because people were allowed to observe and record. And that's a fact.
Thank you so much, Mayor Victor Gordo. And we do appreciate when you have come out and stood with us in community, speaking to ICE and speaking that we do want ICE out of Dena. We want ICE abolished and completely. So I do want to also just add really quick that the word bait could have been a little triggering because people are just showing up as human beings and working. And so when you use the word bait, I think that's what kind of like...
Maybe manipulate's a better word.
Yeah.
As a community, we're being put in a situation that, that's divisive. I mean, there's nobody that I recognize in this room who says we want this, and I hate to see us divided and manipulated into divisive action. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you so much, Mayor Gordo. I got to get to my question. I took too long. So, of course, we're talking about ICE. when we're thinking of what danger and violence ICE has brought, we think about Keith Porter, black man killed in LA. We also want to talk about policing when it comes to PPD and their interaction with black men here in Pasadena. We know that recently on January 30th, Malcolm Buchanan was fatally shot by the Pasadena police in March. I just want to pause there because I know we've already sent emails to you, Chief Harris, to the CPOC, and to several others asking questions about that particular incident, and also asking for the videos to be released about that shooting, and a man was left dead in that incident, and also I know that an officer was hurt. The thing that we also, we sent a letter to CPOC, we also sent a letter to the city manager asking specific questions, and we do have those 5 questions, but I know that since we are limited on time, they're gonna say, Heavenly, you can't ask all 5 questions. So you all have received the questions, and I just feel like the main thing we want to know is, when will you release the videos? Because that is what we have been working for so many years, to put policies in place that we need you all to abide by. And if things are right standing and you feel like it's justified what your officers did that night, then release the videos. Because sometimes when you guys take a long time to release the videos, it put questions in our head. We're like questioning, and then we're questioning how you all are doing things. So please release the videos.
The investigation into the shooting is ongoing. It's in its fledgling stages. But the law requires us to put the videos out within 45 days. That will put us probably in mid-April, second week in April, if not before that, but not any later than that. We won't put the videos out until we've investigated this fully and made sure that we've taken a look at all of the footage to ensure that there's nothing that needs to be considered in the investigation that can't go out to the public for a lot of reasons, including we have to look at every one of those videos, not just the body-worn camera videos, but all the videos that we have, to ensure that we don't capture something that can't be released to the public, like the faces of children or the faces of people who haven't given releases to be released to the public. So there's a technical piece of that where those faces have to be blurred out. Certain things that can't be released need to be pulled out of the video so that we can put the raw footage there, but we have to make sure we abide by the law. So 45 days is the time frame. We're currently putting together, as law requires, a critical incident video that will be released within that time frame, and it will be released concurrent with the raw video of the circumstance.
I want to just say quickly that this was a really important question. We actually have heard this question in the community, but we talked about the placement for tonight because it speaks to the trust deficit. You know, and like every day that it takes, every day that is prolonged, you know, there's more questions. So I just want to make sure that I say that. Also, we have, I want to just pause briefly to thank Nicole for your vulnerability and the gift that you gave us to tell us how you're really feeling. And as a pastor, I was sensing that, so I'm really grateful that you came up and said that, because I was going to pause us to acknowledge that there are people in the room where this is not theory, this is real, the fear is tangible, it's in your household. And so we want to honor you and thank you for being out here tonight to hear these things iterated over and over again, like we're talking about something that's not real, and it's about your life and the life of your children. And we care about that, and that's why we're here. But thank you so much for doing that. We're going to move on to question 7, and we have a question. Selena is in the back with somebody from Grupo Autodefensa.
Good evening, City Manager, Mayor, Chief Harris. This is a question for you, Chief Harris, mainly. I'm Cal Soto. I'm a lawyer with the National Day Labor Organizing Network, and this is a question about legal observation and the use of whistles and horns in that context. Some folks, human rights monitors here in the community, have heard from your department that they might issue citations around that. And let me add a little context. That Pasadena's own noise ordinance was challenged in 2024, as you know, The ACLU flagged it as unconstitutional, and the city attorney has declined to prosecute any citations brought under that ordinance. The First Amendment protects expressive noise during public demonstrations. A whistle or a horn in that context isn't obstruction. It can't be construed as obstruction. It's notifying the community. It's a signal something's happening, and it's exactly the role that legal observers play, bearing witness and alerting the public. So help us understand and clarify for us, please, Chief Harris, what exactly would the legal basis be for citing someone for using a horn or a whistle in that context during a protected demonstration?
I'm not aware of where the information came from about us citing people for whistles and those things. What I will comment on is that we have to understand things that don't occur in a vacuum. So as an example, to blow a whistle probably doesn't draw any attention, unnecessary attention from a legal perspective. To have a horn probably doesn't do that. But if you do blow that whistle and you do blow that horn, and as a result of an operation that's in progress, someone is hurt as a result of that, that does cross the line into impeding or obstructing, or it can. That is an interpretation of the law that if that happens, there will be other people, attorneys, those folks that get engaged to determine whether or not there's a violation of the law. So generally, blowing whistles and those kind of things, no one's gonna sweat anybody over that. I haven't given any direction to anyone in the police department to write these citations, so I'm not sure where that's coming from. But I will caution people that our version of obstructing and the federal version of obstructing may be completely different. And though we may not take action against someone, that doesn't preclude the federal agencies from taking that action, and it could be significant, especially if as a result in their minds there is an injury or some issue with the case or the contact between them and who they're looking for comes to light. So this is a matter of really informing the public just so that they're aware. If you're going to do the legal observing and blow a whistle and have those things, you should be fully aware of what could occur depending on the interpretations. But as far as the Pasadena Police Department is concerned, I've given no direction, and I'm not aware of anyone that is going out and issuing cites for making noise and professionally observing.
Glad to hear it. And as clarification, my understanding is there needs to be an affirmative physical act impeding a law enforcement action for there to be obstruction. And largely, certainly in California, but I think generally federally, a sound alone hasn't been interpreted as that physical impeding act without conduct that physically interferes, right? And I understand you're saying they could interpret, and they do use pretextual interpretations a lot of the time, but that is really shaky First Amendment grounds to say that a whistle or a horn is somehow physically impeding or harming these officers.
Well, I'll give you an example that is something that should be considered, whether or not you perceive it this way or it's perceived this way in the end. I'll leave that up to the individual. But if a law enforcement agency is, for an example, walking up on a house to serve a search warrant, and the whole purpose of the search warrant and their approach to the search warrant is to be there to initiate an arrest, and as a result of someone notifying or informing the person that's inside the residence that law enforcement is coming, and someone is injured as a result of that notification, you can be sure that someone's going to get arrested by the federal officers, or whatever the officers are, based on the results of that interaction. I'm not telling you whether or not it will stand the scrutiny of going to a jury trial and all those things. There's many different versions and levels within the law that would have to go through. But there will certainly be enough probable cause to make an arrest, and then the courts will do whatever it is they do. My advice, and take all some or none of it, I'm simply putting this out there, is that we should be aware of the potential for that to happen. And that's just something that we should be aware of as we make our decisions on what we're going to do. But the final answer for the Pasadena Police Department is we are not issuing citations for people blowing whistles, making noise out there on the demonstrations or any of those things. Should be noticed, though, that there's a difference between a demonstration and what the feds or whomever's out there might discern as interfering. And that's just something that we just need to have information and be aware of. I'm not telling you one way or the other. You have to make that decision yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Harris. I kind of want to make a clarification because every time you're answering the feds might do this or the feds, but I think the question really is Pasadena, what is Pasadena PD, right? Because we can't, structure or have anything to say with the feds, as the mayor has told us, as our city manager has told us. But what we're in this room for is the response of Pasadena PD. And so if a Grupo Defensa is out there and they are whistling against the feds, right? The question is really about, is a Pasadena PD going to step up and arrest them because they are whistling to notify their neighbors or other people that ICE is there? So I want to just clarify that question so your answer could at least tweak it to get closer to the middle of, it's not about the feds tonight, it's about Pasadena PD. The next question is from Pasadena Job Center, worker.
Sí, buenas tardes. Buenas tardes a la mesa. A mis compañeros, a cada uno de mis compañeros les invito por favor a ponernos de pie. A cada uno de nuestros aliados, por favor, ponernos de pie.
To my fellow Community Job Center members, if you can stand up, and also allies of the Pasadena Job Center, if you can stand up also.
Me llamo Luis, soy un orgulloso miembro de Pasadena Community Job Center. Este centro de trabajo ha estado en Pasadena por más de 25 años. Es un lugar donde nos conectamos, donde construimos, donde crecemos. Es nuestro hogar.
My name is Luis. I'm a proud member of the Pasadena Community Job Center. The Job Center has been in Pasadena for more than 25 years. It is where we connect, where we build, where we grow. It is our home.
Después del incendio de Eaton, nosotros limpiamos la ciudad una vez más. Distribuimos artículos esenciales. Más después del fuego, a más de 13,000 familias. Y movilizamos a más de 12,000 voluntarios a la mayoría de esta comunidad. Recogimos más de 4,000 toneladas de basura. Fue el trabajo que le ahorramos a la ciudad.
So after the Eden fire, we cleaned the city. Once again, we distributed essential supplies for more than a month after the fire, reaching over 13,000 families and mobilizing more than 12,000 volunteers, most of them from this community. And we picked up more than 3 tons of green debris around the city.
Nuestra comunidad trabajadora siempre ha estado presente apoyando a la comunidad. Y ahora necesitamos de la ciudad que se haga presente para nosotros y nos apoye.
Our working community is always present, supporting broader community. And now we need the city to show up for us and support us.
Hemos recibido la noticia de que la propiedad, el lote, ha presentado a la ciudad unos planes de desarrollar este terreno donde se encuentra nuestro centro. Estos planes no incluyen a nuestro centro. Ha estado por más de 26 años.
We have learned that the property owner has submitted plans to the city to develop the land where our center is located. Those plans do not include our center, which has been there for more than 26 years.
Estamos preocupados por este plan que nos sacaría de este lugar sagrado para nosotros, que nos dejaría sin espacio donde a diario para conectarnos, para aprender juntos y para buscar el trabajo a través del cual nos apoyamos a nuestras familias y crecemos juntos con la comunidad.
We are deeply concerned about this plan, which could force us out of this place that is sacred to us. leaves us without a space where we can connect, learn together, and find work through which we support our families and grow as a community.
Estamos aquí durante este tiempo tan duro y lleno de incertidumbre para nosotros y queremos preguntarles, ¿qué va a pasar? ¿Qué va a hacer la ciudad para garantizar que Pasadena siempre tenga un Pasadena Community Center, un hogar para nosotros, un lugar seguro donde las comunidades y el odio no permitan entrar?
So we are here during this difficult and uncertain time, and we ask, what will the city do to ensure that Pasadena always has a Pasadena Community Job Center, a home for us, a safe place where raids and hate cannot enter?
Y para todos y cada uno de nosotros, ¡solo el pueblo! ¡Solo el pueblo!
Yes, what is the city going to do?
Let me take, let me try and address the question. You know, I recall when the Community Job Center was opened. And, you know, Pablo, Vanya, Porfiria, many of us and many others in the room worked hard to open that center. And worked hard to bring the workers who at the time were at Villa and Raymond Summit in the larger numbers. And I remember walking with Pablo and others to leaflet and try and bring workers to the center to make it effective. And also working with the then city council and the city management to ensure that the city not just opened it, but to contribute to its success monetarily and otherwise. And so I am committed. You know, I would be lying to you. Any of us would be misleading you if we said we can force a private property owner to continue to offer a lease. We don't control that. It's a private property owner. Do I wish I could say that? Yes, but we can't, and I'm not going to mislead you. But am I committed to ensuring that the city continues to do its part to ensure that there's a day labor center in Pasadena if the owner of this property decides to not renew the lease and change tenants? I'm committed to that. I've said that. And I'm committed to asking my colleagues to continue to offer assistance to ensure its success. And that we have a center in Pasadena.
And just a quick follow-up question, I guess, because I think many might not understand what's that process. Again, this owner has submitted plans to the city to develop this area where the center's at. What's that process looks like so we can know?
I can try to answer that question, but I'll say it's a long, complicated process. I've not seen the application. My understanding is the planning department has received an application, although I've never seen it. The community should know that we receive lots of applications and not all of them go forward. You know, people that own land say, I want to do this, and then they never follow up or they don't get the money to develop and hire an architect or whatever else. So as far as I know, an application has been received, but no more work has been done on it. They haven't asked for what's called an entitlement. It hasn't moved forward. But if they have that plan and they're going to continue with the process, it'll be a public process. It'll take a long time to process and to approve, so it'll be years from now. And in the interim, I'll be retiring very soon, but you know, I can say if I were here, I would, knowing the mayor's support is there, knowing the council support was there to pay for the existing facility, I would propose to the council that we find a solution where we continue that same relationship. And I just want to say, I'm so thankful, not only to our the people that cleaned up after the fires, I'm also thankful to the legal observers. I want that to be clear. Yeah. I am grateful and thankful Because you can imagine what would happen, what would have happened in Minneapolis if we didn't have legal observers showing us what really happened when the gentleman was killed. So I have a sense that people are angry, and I get that. I'm angry too. I'm here in a suit, I'm your city manager, but I'm Miguel Marquez. I'm a guy who on the weekend wears jeans and a t-shirt and gets treated as Miguel Marquez. And that's hard. And I share your frustration and your emotion, but I want you to know that we are here to serve the community, to protect the community, and we understand the value of the Job Center. I understand the value, and I'm hopeful. I can't make the city council vote, they're my boss, but I can propose an option to solve that problem. I see it as a problem to be solved.
Thank you, and I appreciate again your words. Appreciate it. One thing, there is also across the street from the center the Kaiser building. That would be an amazing spot to have a job center there. What does that look like? Can that happen? What's that process? The old Kaiser building.
To the south.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gone through a long RFP process, and we are currently, the project's moving forward. We're currently in negotiations with, people who are interested in running the project and redeveloping the site. Would I say to you that, it's out of the universe to do something like that? No. But is it included in the current RFP? No, it's not. We learned about the possibility of the current center not renewing its lease after we put the RFP out, and I think we had conversations about that. And my commitment is to ensure that there continues to be a day labor center, a worker center in Pasadena.
And if I could add, the plan, that property, there's a thing called the Surplus Land Act, the SLA. And so when the city acquired it, we had to put it out to proposal for affordable housing. And we're working now on what's called an exclusive negotiating agreement with a proposer who plans to do, I don't remember the exact number of units, it might even be 100% affordable, but affordable housing on the site and room. Hopefully the vision is to have both mental health and medical health services for the community in that area. We lack tremendously in what's called outpatient mental health treatment here in Pasadena, so we're hopeful to have county partnership to come in and offer services to the community right in that location, along with affordable housing.
And look, if those services were identified as a gap, the county did a study to see where we needed to put services. And if those services were needed before the fire and before ICE action, you can only imagine how they're needed now.
And then yes or no question, do you commit to hiring workers from the center for that project?
For the
Kaiser project that the housing project that you're mentioning?
The city doesn't hire workers for that project. It's the developer, the general contractor. There will be, more than likely, like we just did with the Central Library, a big push for local hire, because we want to put dollars in our local economy and help people in our own community. So there will be a big push for local hire, I assume, once we get to that point.
Absolutely, there will be.
Great, thank you. And again, glad to hear, again, there's different options, different avenues that we can, again, see and explore, again, for there to be a community center. One, for all the community here, are we going to keep fighting for there to be a Pasadena Community Job Center in Pasadena?
Absolutely. Next question is coming from Pasadena Job Center.
Hi, my name is Sandra, and my family was directly impacted by the ICE raids in Pasadena last year. During that time, my husband was detained for several months, and family went through that most difficult period. We suffer emotionally, financially, and mentally. We are still fighting to recover, rebuild our lives. Like many others, uncertainty is still everyday situation, and we are doing everything we can to move forward. because we are resilient and we have found we have an amazing community to sustain us, but we'll still need support. Last year, the city spoke about creating immigrant assistance funds to support families like mine who were impacted by these rates. My question is, what is the current status of the funds and how is the city ensuring the families who were affected, families like mine, are actually receiving the support that was promised?
The city council did approve what I consider to be seed funding. In other words, money that would hopefully attract other dollars. My understanding is those dollars are now with the California Community Foundation. And there is I don't know if it's an application or there's a process internally with the California Community Foundation for those dollars to be expended. Now, I did make a commitment to push for those dollars, as did some of my colleagues, and fortunately, the staff recommended it. The council, I believe, unanimously supported it, and then I made a commitment that we would use that opportunity to ask others to contribute money. Maybe some of the people who have significant resources in our city may be interested, and I'm prepared to do that. And I would ask all of you to join, because it's not just people who have significant resources, but we can, I think, all encourage family and friends to do the same thing. My understanding, she was asking for help related to the money that the city put in.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is the problem that we have, and that's why there is a deficit of trust, as many of the folks in the room have said previously, is that those resources were promised like 6 months ago.
And they were...
No, just listen. 6 months ago. And the rates have already happened, and families are being split, they're suffering. And it's simply unacceptable that 6 months later we're still talking about it. The first time that, actually it was yesterday that I heard for the first time that the money was transferred to the California Community Foundation. It's the first time, And to us, when you come to our rallies and you promise things, we're going to hold you accountable.
No, absolutely. And the dollars.
And along the same lines,
go ahead.
If there is something that I hope that you feel in this room, is that we are determined to protect our community.
Absolutely. Our community.
We're determined to do that. But we want to see a mayor that stands up with us the same way the mayor of Chicago has done it, the same way the mayor of Denver has done it, the same way the mayor of Seattle has done it, the same way the mayor of New York has done it. We want to see that mayor, the mayor who tells a story of being an immigrant, which we're proud of. But we want to, precisely because you tell that story, we want to see you standing up stronger. And not through symbolic measures, because I know that the city council said that, the premises of the city will not be lent to the federal agents to use them to stage operations in the city.
Yeah.
That's still very symbolic to us. At the end of the day, I hope that you feel that the sentiment in the room is that when it comes down to ice, it appears that we're on our own. It appears that look, I've gone through over and over, what am I going to do when I get stopped because of the color of my skin? And I have come to one conclusion, and that is that I am going to exercise my constitutional rights. and they're gonna probably pull me out of the car, break the window of my vehicle, and they're gonna probably do an unlawful arrest. I feel like I cannot call the police department for protection. That's how people feel around this room. So that's what we all feel. So anytime that you have the opportunity to talk to us, you know, we want you to tell us the truth and not promise things that are gonna take like 6 months. Jesus's family, Jesus was in detention for 5 months. During 5 months, it didn't work. That's how it is with the families that have been split by these unfair policies and practices of the federal government. And you know, as it was said before, this moment that we're going through requires that we stand up to an autocrat, to fascism, to authoritarianism, the same way this community is doing it. So that's what we want to see with our city officials.
Absolutely. And you know, I agree with that. You know, I've, as you know, have attended, I was there at Villa Park when one of the first actions and some people were taking from in front of Villa Park. I went directly there, and ICE was still there. One of the young men they were taking away was still there. And some of us were asking him, what's your name or phone number, who can we call? And you know, it was heartbreaking to hear him say, I have no one. And so I am committed to, that was his response. I am committed. And then when they took the workers from the Winchells, we all spoke up about that as a council, and certainly I as mayor. And we went to the detention center to protest and to ask to see them. And I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to say it in every community. You know, many of you may know I'm an immigrant. I'm not going to go through my whole story. But I know what it's like to feel that way. In fact, it's very sad to me that Miguel and I both were carrying our passports for quite some time on the advice of local officials because we were concerned we would be targeted, not just as immigrants, but you know, as Latinos and also as leaders who were standing up and making our voice known very directly and very pointedly, and we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to show up. Anytime you've called, Pablo, I've said we're going to be there. In terms of the money, the dollars, we did approve it. We brought it to the council not 6 months later. We brought it to the council fairly quickly. And now the dollars, there has to be a process when you use public dollars. There has to be a process. And again, I don't want to give the Trump administration or anyone else an opportunity to say, we're going to take your resources because you're not following the rules that you're supposed to follow. And you know, they've made that threat. They've made that threat as recently as this week or late last week, where they're saying, you know, they've said to us, we'll take your housing dollars and other health department dollars and all sorts of dollars if you don't agree to accept and enforce all executive orders, known and unknown. And, you know, the city council has been resolute in saying, you know, that's not the city that we are. But there's a danger there too, because we know that this administration is capable of some very ugly and inhumane things. And so that concerns me. because, you know, in housing alone, we're looking at a lot of people who potentially could lose their homes if the subsidies for, you know, Section 8 or some of the other subsidized properties are gone. And so it is a complicated matter, and we're going to do everything I'm going to do everything I can, and I know my colleagues on the city council and I know the staff will do everything it can to be supportive and to make our collective and individual voices known.
Yes, I know, while she's walking. Thank you for that commitment. Also, there are probably a half a dozen organizations in this room that would be willing to be the intermediary for those funds to make sure that they get to the community, Mayor. So if you can even expedite another avenue for us to actually make that happen, then we don't have to be talking about this 6 months from now.
But Mr. Mayor, I just want to follow up on what, make a comment about what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are certainly, you have power. You're three of the most powerful people in our city. And we expect you to stand up to the autocrat. And what appears is that you're more afraid of this president. That's what it appears. When you're saying that you have to go through third parties to help immigrants who make this city run. That's how it feels to us when you say that. This community is not afraid of the autocrat in the White House. This community is confronting his agents. You know, we want to see that courage also in our city officials.
Yeah. And again, you know, if that's the impression I gave, it's not the impression I intended. You know, I've been on national television and national newspapers, local newspapers, making my opinion known about this administration. I personally am not concerned, but I also have a tremendous responsibility to ensure that we don't give an opening to this administration or anyone else to bring further harm to people who are very vulnerable. That's my concern, and that's, you know, but me personally, no, I've spoken up, I've been there, you know, at detention centers, you name it, and I'll continue to do that. And so my concern is not for me personally, and not a concern that, you know, I don't want to stand up, and I'll say it right now, this administration is not just fascist, but when they showed up on February 7th, the day this community was attempting to heal, I said it very clearly, and I'll say it again, that's, if not evil, darn right borderline evil. It was intentional, and it had the impact of, you know, harming a lot of people. I couldn't even go out to some of the community events that I'd planned to because we were busy at City Hall trying to figure out what our reaction was going to be. And so I missed some of the events in Altadena and Pasadena related to commemorating the fire victims. And so I'm not afraid to call them out. I'll call them out right now. It's evil, what they're doing to people, and it's inhumane. And I know what it's like to feel that way as a kid, and it pains me to see that other kids are now having to do that, and other families are having to do that, including your city manager and your mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Gordo. We're going to move to our last pre-planned question. But before we move on from this one, Mayor, can you give us an idea of how long you expect this piece for the $100,000 to be resolved? What can we expect?
I don't know the answer to that question, but certainly I can provide an answer to anyone after I consult with the city manager and the head of the California Community Foundation, who I know personally, Miguel Santana, and reached out and said, Miguel, can you help us out with this? And he agreed to do it.
He agreed to do it?
He agreed to, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'll call Miguel on tomorrow.
Miguel, yeah, he's a good friend.
Thank you. To Pastor Myra's point too, as a city or as an entity that has given money to the California Community Foundation for a specific reason, you also have the power to earmark that money without an application process. And I think since Indalon and the Job Center that has been supporting families since day one, they should not have to go through an application process to be able to support their community. So I think that's number one. Now back to my question. My question is about mental health, and the truth of the matter is our community has suffered a tremendous amount of trauma within our communities. Families have been ripped apart by masked individuals. They have been kidnapped and so many other things within our community. And this question is pertaining to the city manager and our mayor is what can the city do and what can the city commit to do to make sure that families who have been torn apart in our community as a whole, that there's mental health resources for our community. This is one thing about our community coming together and families being reunited once they are reunited, but still the trauma has taken its course. And so what can our city do to commit that there's not only resources of that $100,000, but there are also mental health resources for our community to be made whole from what's happening here at this moment?
Yeah, I think the longer term answer, I'm hoping that the project at the Kaiser property moves quickly. And it has moved at a pretty fast pace. I can't think of another property or project where, you know, we purchased that in late 2024, I believe it was, November of 2024. We acquired that property, and here we are in exclusive negotiations. And so, you know, long before the fire or ICE raids, because we knew there was a gap in services. And so my hope is that we can all rally behind that because it's needed, and ensure that the resources are put there by the county. I've talked to Huntington Hospital about rotating their residents through there for mental health training. Right now they go to Las Encinas, where people can afford those services, either for substance disorder or mental health disorder or dual diagnosis, both. And so hopefully we can redirect those doctors to the Kaiser project.
I appreciate that. If I can just frame it a little bit more.
Well, let me finish. In the interim, we have asked the county to provide additional services, and we'll continue to ask them to do that because, you know, I don't want us to wait until, you know, we have a brick and mortar location at that site, and, you know, I'll continue to ask the county to provide those services. And we do have an upcoming meeting with Supervisor Barger, and we're going to renew that call.
Thank you for that project. But to frame it a little bit more, these are not people who have mental health diagnoses. These are not people who have substance abuse issues. These are families who have been ripped apart in our community. But these are also community and neighbors who have also dealing with the trauma of not wanting to go to the store, of not wanting to send their students to school, of not wanting to go to the gas station because of what is happening. So I appreciate the mental health piece of it, of the diagnosis side of it, and also the substance abuse, but there's also trauma happening within our community now, and there's also organizations within our community that is providing services. So is the city committed at this point, before this building is ever built, to bring together entities to provide mental health services for families who have been treated unfairly, but have also dealt with trauma?
No, absolutely, and I didn't mean to answer it as though the partnership would only provide mental health and substance disorder assistance. It'll provide mental health assistance, but also health services will be present to provide medical assistance. So it'll be kind of a medical clinic for people who need medical services. You know, this concept started during COVID when I asked the CEO of Huntington Hospital, then Dr. Lori Morgan, what can the city do to assist? And she said, we need additional health and mental health services in our city. Then I did some research together where I called the Department of Mental Health and Health Services, and this is what I discovered. At the time, now this is during COVID, the county allocated $55 million towards health and mental health services in our general area. But they were only spending $45 million instead of the entire $55 million. 55 was going unused because we didn't have the providers. There were 19 providers in Pasadena at the time, including Pacific Clinics, but they didn't have the staffing. They didn't have, it takes 3 days to even get someone to answer the phone, and then you have to wait a month to get an appointment. And so that's where Dr. Morgan and some of the rest of us said, we need to have services here in Pasadena. Because right now, if you seek mental health services, you have to go to the west side, you got to go to Pomona, and for health services, you got to go, Long Beach, El Monte, if you're looking for services from the county. And that's not acceptable. They do provide services through these contractors, but there just weren't enough. And so if you know of anybody who can provide those services, please let me know. And we will take them directly to the county. The comment is it's very hard to get contracted with them. And if you have ideas, believe me, I'm open to this. I am committed to bringing those services to Pasadena and Altadena, generally for our community.
Thank you. We have time, so I want who has a question in the audience? Who has a question in the audience?
Thank you very much. I had to write this down to get it right. So right now, we are seeing Pasadena Police usher in military-grade equipment and an expansion of advanced surveillance technology. Districts 3 and Districts 5 are home to the highest number of Black, brown, undocumented, and low-income residents. Also happen to have the highest concentration of flock cameras in the city. That is not neutral. That is targeted surveillance. At the same time, today, we have very real concerns about whether this department collaborates with ICE. To me, those two things are not independent of each other. And we deserve access to information that we can use to protect ourselves. So I would like to ask the independent police auditor of the Community Police Oversight Commission to conduct a thorough audit of the department's automated license plate reader data so that we can understand how this data is being used, who it's being shared with, and above all, what justifies this level of surveillance in our city.
The question is to... Amen. Who has another question?
First off, I want to thank everybody here for coming. The community members, I don't think the people on stage quite realize the balls it takes to come in here and confront them face to face. I've grown up with a deep distrust of anyone with a badge. Maybe fire department is okay, but anybody else with a badge, I've just seen what the largest gang in America will do to people at their beck and whim. So nothing necessarily personal to those with a badge here, but just so you know, that is ingrained in so many of us. And when we see a badge coming, it doesn't make us feel good. So to everybody in here who stood up, said something, I mean, I just want to thank you. City Manager, you mentioned that you have seen proof that these agents lie, and the only reason they know is because people observe, right? I mean, that, to paraphrase what you said, they lie about something, footage is released, you find out they're just full of shit.
I was referencing in Minneapolis, I saw with my own eyes a video, and I
Yeah.
saw what Secretary Noem said, and I found what she said to be an utter lie.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, so coming from agents, coming from their superiors, coming from the president, coming from everybody who backs that whole group.
Can you ask your question? I'm so sorry, because I want to get other people, so ask the question.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
So
I haven't got a badge.
Do the other two people on stage agree that they lie? Can you say that outright? They lie. I'm getting to a point here.
That who lies?
The federal agents, ICE, they lie about what happens.
I think that they've misrepresented, no question, and that's definitely an
So
example
no.
of it.
So can you?
The issue I have with it is, have we been misled and lied to by people at the federal level? Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to get to is the arrest of Jose Madera. You mentioned that you had probable cause to arrest him. Could you explain what that was?
Mr. Madera. In this case, and I won't talk about the details of the case itself, but in this case, the arrest was as a result of interactions between Mr. Madera and law enforcement officers from the city of Pasadena, not with the interactions or not related to the interactions with ICE. So probable cause is the next in the levels of determining whether or not an arrest can be made. Starts with reasonable suspicion, which is the lowest level that allows us to make contact with people. Probable cause, which allows an arrest to be made. And then it extends through the courts to beyond a reasonable doubt, et cetera. So there are many check marks along the way to determine whether or not, and protections to make sure that we don't have any wrongdoing on the part of anybody that's involved in the process.
Okay. So just to be clear, he was arrested. The person that you got information from driving directly in front of him, they were just pulled off on the street. He had fake plates on his vehicle. That was no problem for the Pasadena Police Department. There was another situation where plates were an issue, and that was Anthony McLean almost 6 years ago. It ended very differently. Instead of listening to the person behind the wheel, the man was shot. Could you explain how those two scenarios are so different when the same initial response could have been taken from what you saw on the street?
I can't.
Okay.
Anybody else have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. She's way over there. That's why I was trying to be fair.
Sorry, I moved up here. I was
Oh,
right there.
okay. And please, I ask you, be precise, not 3-part, 4-part questions.
Okay, I'm
Thank
just going to
you.
ask 3 or 4 very quick questions. They all relate to each other. Chief Harris, are you aware of the many ways that the feds can get a hold of Pasadena data, front door, side door access? Are you aware of the many places where it is illegal to share access that the feds have gotten access of FLOC data? Are you aware that in 2025, FLOC did a pilot program giving Customs and Border Patrol direct access to the network, and it only came out because they got caught? Are you aware that in 2020, Pasadena Police Department was actively sharing, it was a different system, but was actively sharing ALPR data with Homeland Security investigations? If you're not, I have an LA Times article on it. Are you aware that our transparency portal includes, as one of the many, well, the 300 plus other departments that get our data, that it includes the North California Regional Intelligence Center, AKA a fusion center, and that DHS, NSA, FBI, et cetera, all are there and have access to our data. And lastly, will you pledge to have a public discussion about flock and mass surveillance that includes privacy and surveillance technology experts and experts on how the feds have gotten ICE, have gotten flock data all over the country? Thank you.
I have a question written. Was Sergeant Gomez acting upon your memo, obviously Chief Harris, to officers when ICE is in Pasadena, or did she miss that memo along with the dozen officers and helicopters that were on the scene for January 7th? And whoever wrote that, if there's other context. Yes, yes.
The answer to the last question is yes, we're open to any discussion. And we have been having those discussions specifically with the public safety entity here in the city. With regard to the other three questions, it appears you might be more informed than I am, so once I'm informed, I'll answer those questions.
I've only lived here 6 months, and why do I know more about flock in Pasadena than you do?
Well, now he knows. I'll repeat the question. Was Sergeant Gomez acting upon your memo to affairs when ICE is in Pasadena, or did she miss that memo along with the dozen officers and helicopter that were on the scene for January 7th?
All of the officers that are in the department are aware of what our policy is and are expected to conduct themselves accordingly.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Porfiria y yo voy a cambiar el tema, voy a darle continuación a lo del centro. Cuando se abrió el centro fue un proceso muy disciplinado, muy organizado y se logró y sigo creyendo en que eso se va a lograr. En el 24 tuvimos una reunión por lo del edificio de Kaiser y nosotros pedimos que se nos tome en cuenta, no como una extensión, sino estar ahí presentes con nuestro programa. En sí, mi pregunta es esta. Hace como 4 meses tuvimos una reunión y se le comunicó a usted, señor concejal, de lo que estaba pasando en el centro y dijo que no tenía idea de la carta del dueño y todo eso. Quisiera saber si ahora todavía tiene notificación de algo o está en blanco como estaba.
En ese tiempo, cuando me hicieron la pregunta, Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
translate real
I'm
quick.
sorry.
Sorry
Go
about that. I am paraphrasing. The question is going back to the Pasadena Community Job Center, wondering, I'll start with the question. The question was, are you still on the unknown as to like what's going to happen with the center? 4 months ago when we talked, there was a conversation that was asked directly to you that you had no clue what was going to be going on with the space at the Kaiser Permanente building. But on the 24th, there was a meeting where the intention was to include for the center to be part of the conversation for Kaiser.
Yeah.
So now the question is that, and the context was that the Pasadena Job Center came about through orderly process where there was steps to it, and it was something that
It was
happened
intentional. Yeah.
intentionally. Yeah.
Yeah, it was intentional to start the first center. And, you know, we tried, Pablo will tell you, Porfiria will tell you, we tried lots of different places. And people were not in agreement. It was a different day. They didn't want a center in their community for various reasons, or in their neighborhood, I should say. But we fought for it and we got it. Now, when I said, and what Porfiria said was 4 months ago, you had no idea, you just referring to me, when it was brought up to me that the owner, the private owner of this private property was planning to redevelop it and had submitted an application. And yes, I was not aware. That was the first I'd heard. You know, people submit, as the city manager has stated, submit applications for redevelopment all in great numbers, and not every, actually very few of them are brought to my attention. And so that was an honest answer. I was not aware that there was an application or that there were any plans. I don't even know if, you know, what those, at the time, I didn't know. And so that was an honest answer. I did not know. Now that we've been made aware, we've had discussions about it, and my commitment is to ensure that there continues to be a worker center in Pasadena. Just as I committed for the first one over 26 years ago that we would have one, I'm committed to ensuring that we continue to have one.
Mi preocupación es que nosotros como centro no escuchamos nada, no sabemos cómo se están organizando, quiénes nos van a representar, no queremos salir como un inquilino que no pagó su renta y vámonos. No, queremos saber que los pasos que estén ustedes dando para eso se nos comunique y que haya una comisión de que vaya al centro y nos esté notificando qué es lo que está pasando, qué podemos hacer, a dónde tenemos que ir para representarnos, y como lo hicimos anteriormente, estuvimos en reuniones y en reuniones por 3 años hasta que se logró, y con las promesas de que aquí y allá, y hasta que se eligió ese lugar. Queremos estar seguros, no queremos estar con la preocupación de que mañana ya agarren sus cositas y vámonos. No, queremos tener una seguridad. Yo creo en usted nos ha cumplido y quiero seguir creyendo, pero quiero que esto sea más claro.
Again, paraphrasing, my concern is that we have not been in the loop about the conversations that are happening. We don't know who are the folks that are representing us. No one is coming to us to keep us informed about the process that's going behind closed doors. This is something that the first process came about where we did trust you, and I have my trust in you, that you did it the first time and that it will happen again now, but the concern is that that has not been the case so far.
Gracias, Porfiria, por su, thank you, Porfiria. You know, there is a process. There are 2 processes. One, there's a development process, and that's a very public process. There's an application filed, and depending on what they're planning, that will surely find its way to a commission or 2, including the Planning Commission. So that'll be likely a very public process. The second process is a process for, in the event that they go forward with their application, and we don't know. We can't, know what's in the mind of the developer or the owner. But the second process is, let's assume for a moment that they decide to move forward with the redevelopment of that property. Then I can assure you there will be a very public process and an opportunity for people to participate in identifying a new location. I'm committed to that. In fact, some of us have had discussions. Pablo pointed out some properties. I pointed out some properties. I've driven by them. And so I'm very keen to ensure that we continue to have a worker center. And so both of those processes will be public and known to everyone.
Okay, now for our next question.
This is for those on the table. My name is Jesus Cuevas. I'm a formerly incarcerated DREAM student. I've not only worked along people with mental health issues, but also drug abuse. what I want to say is I strongly advocate for officers, you know, not only because I've seen the side of being falsely accused, and you know, and I've worked with POP. They did an amazing documentary that hosted officers and DAs and judges, and I stood in front of those that once oppressed me, that I believe that. I'm now here ready to advocate and connect the community with you. You heard one of the young ladies say that we're not getting a direct link from the information to the community. There will never be a time where I'll use the term, you know, FTP. I no longer believe in these views. What does it look like for someone like that's formerly incarcerated, that's also undocumented, to be in these spaces, to provide information for my community? Because if I'm willing to learn and advocate for police officers, I want to know that they'll strongly advocate for the undocumented community. I'm not in these institutions. I don't just put on a shirt that says Pasadena City College because I want to look pretty. I do it so I could get educated, so I could strongly believe in these positions that you hold. Would you be willing to somehow come up with a program where you're able to hire us and understand the language that you speak? Because there isn't just a language barrier of English and Spanish. There's a educational barrier. We need to understand what each policy does and how it's made and how it's created and when it takes effect. And when it does take effect, how does that affect our community and when it will? Because this is the language you continue to speak. And so what does that look like? I am here to let you know that I'm willing to work with you. I will give you the 100% trust that many might not be willing to give you. And again, I'm coming from a position of being formerly incarcerated, falsely accused, but I trust and believe because you know, there is God, and I walk with God, and so yeah, I just want to know what that looks like.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And clap. Please clap for that.
I think that there are opportunities, even specific to law enforcement and to our police department. One of the things to address your question is us dealing with a contemporary rebranding of our police department. So 3 years ago, we embarked upon our desire to rebrand the police department and move to the future and start engaging with folks that we might not otherwise have engaged with. One of the things that we did that's important in response to your question is we now mandate that any new officers have to go through 8 hours of training at the Impact House, have to go to Flint Ridge, and they have to go and become a person who has some knowledge about the folks who might have been in your position. We want that to happen at the earliest stages so that when they go through field training and they go through probation, they have something to balance it against so that they understand that we're dealing with human beings and we're dealing with people. I myself go straight to the streets to talk to folks to figure out what it is that they need and how we can impact them positively. It's not always successful. It takes a while to change. We're in the process of that change. And so from a police department perspective, we are absolutely willing to engage with folks because I led, when I was the president of the LA County Police Chiefs, I led an effort, or at least tried to get an effort implemented that when we have people who might have served time and been done with parole, why then does the law require them to write that they were formerly incarcerated on a job application? If they've already paid their time, gotten off parole, been successful at that, then aren't they just like everybody else? With some minor exceptions. I mean, you know, there's some crimes that we just can't get away from, but in general, can we treat people like human beings? And so I just want you to know, I appreciate you coming up here. That trust that you are giving us 100% of, we absolutely have to earn every day. And the people that are here in uniform and the other folks in the department are working to get there. And so the commitment that I have to you and others in your situation, we're going to do that. We're going to commit to that.
You know, if I can thank you, Chief. Let me just say, I want to thank you for your courage and your comments, particularly, personally, and then your comments related to police officers. I resist repeating things that were done against me and all of us as a community. And vilifying everyone who has one job or looks a certain way is wrong. It's been done to you, and in some ways continues to be done because you were wrongfully accused, or some people made a mistake in life, and as the chief points out, they've done their time or gone through whatever they've gone through in the legal process, and we shouldn't whole cloth vilify them or you. Police officers, having said that, police officers, like the rest of us, are human beings and make mistakes, and we should address those mistakes. But to simply say because you wear a uniform or a badge, or because you're one segment of our community, we're going to vilify you, that's wrong. It was wrong when it was happening to me, and people were calling me a beaner, a wetback. I've had people at city council say I'm an anchor baby, and I was born in Mexico. And it's wrong, and so, but it's continued to happen, and so I resist that, and I believe that we all should. There's no room to vilify people anywhere because of what they do. If they make mistakes, let's call it what it is. But to say everyone who wears a uniform or looks a certain way and vilify them is wrong. I've seen both. I've seen some very, very good, overwhelmingly excellent people and human beings, some of whom are in this room that we, came up together and I grew up with. I know their families, very good people. And I've seen police officers make serious mistakes. And many of them pay the consequences with their career, their reputation, their integrity. And so I appreciate your honesty and your openness to accepting our common humanity. And that's what's missing today in this country, is a recognition of our common humanity, whether it's at the federal level, at the state level, or the local level. We have to get back to understanding our common humanity and ensuring it's a part of everything that we do, every decision that we make, and importantly, what we say to each other, and how we say it. So what I see in your comments and recognize it, and I'd be proud for you to come to work for us, I see a willingness to accept our common humanity, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor. Because this is probably the last community forum, or maybe, that the city manager will be at, maybe. City Manager Marquez, would you like to add anything to that or say anything else?
Just to reiterate what I said about thanking you for the work that you do. I truly mean that. And as this gentleman was just speaking, I'll just share personally, my own brother that I grew up with, who's 2 years older than me, he's my idol, in the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, got himself in trouble, was incarcerated as an ex-felon. And you don't know how worried I was for him to try to get a job. Yeah. That's my background. That's what I have to deal with. And he's made good in life. And I believe in my brother. He's doing well, and I believe in you. And I think you keep at it, and we'll work with you to have you be a success. I am going to be stepping away from the role in about a month's time. And I hope folks do recognize that under the leadership of the mayor, they hired me, even though I had no city experience. But I had other life experience that I think has been relevant. I shared some of that with you today. I was the first city manager of color, and I think that's important. I have a very diverse staff, including my police chief who I hired, and so many other people on senior staff. We are here. We know we have to earn your trust. We're working hard every day. Today, I have to go back tonight to Santa Ana to take care of my mother and take her to a medical appointment early in the morning. Last night, we were in a council meeting till midnight. I'm not trying to get sympathy. I took on this role on purpose, for a reason, for a mission. I feel good about what I've been able to accomplish, but I did want to move the ball forward, building a more just and more equitable society. But I know that lies in your hands, not in mine. And I can be a facilitator of that. And I've tried, and I've done my best, and I thank you for letting me be your city manager. But as I leave, I do leave confident that you have a staff in place, an executive team, you have a council. Look at what we did last night with the recommendations we made relating to ICE. We have a plan, we're gonna execute on it. We're here to hear this meeting, and we're gonna bring it right back to City Council and get direction about how we deal with ICE. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to share that, and it's been a privilege to serve you all.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to wrap up, so I'm going to try to...
Desde abajo se defiende a todo mundo. Radio Jornalera, donde tu voz encuentra un eco amplificado, donde tus derechos salen a la luz y disipan el miedo, donde tus aportes a la sociedad se evidencian, donde se reconoce que tus luchas reivindican derechos para todas y todos. Radio Jornalera destaca a la gente humilde que pelea por sus derechos a pesar de sus circunstancias de despojo y marginación. Eleva a los individuos y sus luchas y muestra cómo la clase trabajadora y humilde puede ser agente de cambio cuando se organiza, cuando se defiende y cuando tiene una lectura correcta de su propia realidad. Radio Jornalera provee el espacio para aprender de los invitados e invitadas sobre sus vidas, lo que les motiva a seguir adelante, sus virtudes y desafíos y hasta su música y poesía favorita. Radio Jornalera recalca el trabajo de activistas, organizadores, educadores y algunas celebridades, sus causas, sus campañas, sus estrategias, sus tácticas y los reveses más duros en el perenne quehacer de formar líderes para hacer el mundo más justo, más humano, más inclusivo. Para cambiar el mundo, primero hay que conocer a las personas que sobreviven las injusticias y políticas públicas groseras. Hay que apoyar y solidarizarse con sus luchas, porque desde abajo se defiende a todo mundo. Radio Jornalera, donde los anhelos y el sentir del pueblo trabajador cobran vida.